The CEO is going to understand the boardroom better than anyone else. And you're going to understand who are your advocates, who do you have in your corner, who's against this, who's on the fence. You want to start building the business case with all of them a part of the process, and it's a collective, collaborative experience.
I understand I need to do this. I understand where the opportunity is. I understand the bigger story and vision behind that. Now, how am I actually going to make this so I get this business to substantial scale in 2 to 3 years?
I think you go into that boardroom and you give them a 5-year time horizon, you're going to have a tough time getting that approved.
Consumers or producers, you feel like you're lacking in one of those areas and need to accelerate. Those are kind of the 3 levers that you have that you can look at and say, there's existing tech startups or companies out there that already have one of these. I can partner with them or buy them and get there much faster.
So how do you get boardroom buy-in? Let's focus this on really truly disruptive innovation. If you're Macy's and you want to go to the board and you say, hey, I want to fundamentally change our business model. I want to let our internal buyers compete with third-party sellers. And third-party sellers could be selling the same products that we Macy's are selling today, but they could sell it at a lower price. And then that inventory is going to sit on our balance sheet. And by the way, to go do this, our infrastructure isn't really ready to do this. So I need to go buy a company or make some investments in tech companies that have really good tools for third-party sellers.
Or in fulfillment.
Or in fulfillment for third-party supply. And yeah, that's the plan. And we need to go do this. How do you make that case? Okay, well, that's what we're going to talk about. So I think there's a few key parts to this. One is, how do you bring data to help validate the opportunity, help show that you've done your diligence, that you understand both the threat and the opportunity, and where you need to start and focus. To your point, you need to say 99 no's for every 1 yes that you make, right? So how do you bring the right data to the table to A, make the right decisions, and B, show that you've done enough diligence to the board to have them believe you, basically. I think the second thing is, what is the timeline that you're trying to execute upon? How much money is this going to cost? Is this going to lose me a bunch of money? And if it is going to lose me a bunch of money, talk to me about break even. Because when are we going to stop losing money? Trust me, the board is going to drill you on how long this thing is going to lose money for. And basically resourcing, staffing. Who are we going to do this? How are we going to execute upon this? Do I need to go hire a bunch of people? What's that going to cost? Right? All those kinds of things. How is this going to defocus from our existing, more short-term, immediate priorities, from just our existing resources versus new resources, and all those kinds of things? I'd say those are probably the main buckets that I would lay out. Obviously, behind that, you need strong financial modeling, and you need to put the numbers together and have that help support the business case. But that's kind of the general business case that you want to go and build. Oh, and then, by the way, you need to deliver this information in an easy to understand manner. And this needs to happen. This isn't just a one boardroom meeting thing, and then they say, great idea, let's go do it. This is a multi-step process where you are having multiple boardroom discussions on this, where you are then having probably follow-up one-on-ones with separate board members. You're going to understand, the CEO is going to understand the boardroom better than anyone else. And you're going to understand who are your advocates, who do you have in your corner, who's against this, who's on the fence. Who, if these 1 or 2 people are really for it, then probably the rest of the board will feel much more comfortable. So who's that kind of like innovation, technology, digital person or people on the board? Really going to make sure you do strong one-on-ones and prep with them and have them very much so involved throughout the whole process. But you're going to have multiple formal board meetings where you discuss this. And you want to start building the business case with all of them a part of the process. And it's a collective, collaborative experience. So, on the first front, from a data standpoint, how can you go spend very little money and put a very small team with a little bit of time and a little bit of money on the ground to try and go validate, to try and go get data, to try and go run experiments, or what we would call manual hacks or manual prototypes? How can you go get real world data, not just like consumer surveys and like qualitative interviews.
Actual operating the business, because what people will tell you is always different than what they'll do in a lot of cases, particularly when money's involved.
And so for Macy's, right, if they already have some like accessories that are coming from third-party sellers, it's a great example. Right. I have data on accessories. What I'm saying now, Board, is I want to go and open up women's clothing to marketplace. And what's that going to do? Oh, and I've done some small tests, very curated tests with third-party sellers to see how this would happen.
Right. And I want to open it up not just to like a handful of major retailer brands, but maybe some smaller and mid-sized type brands that would love to sell on my website. Mm-hmm. And, I've done some tests with them to make sure, all right, how do I maintain quality? How do I onboard them and all this kind of stuff? So you work through the kinks.
I've done some tests. Hey, I've already gotten a bunch. Here's a whole list of people that are interested and would love to come sell for this.
Right.
You know what? I've also gone and talked to all the tech startups in the space, because in doing these tests, we realized that I would need to go build out these like 20 tools, and that's going to take me about 18 months to go and do. So these tech startups here can solve for this, this, and this. And I think we could do some partnerships, or maybe do a minority investment, or whatever it is, right? Or just use the SaaS tool, whatever. Here are the ways that we are going to accelerate that timeline from building everything from scratch.
What I would say, there's three pieces of this, and you need to slowly build consensus around each of them. One is the story. So what's the bigger narrative of where do we need to go and how do we get there? Two is the supporting data. So that's when it stops becoming a hypothetical conversation of, we should, for example, have a marketplace. It's what's the supporting data say about the marketplace opportunity? Who are these types of customers? How does that affect our existing business? If we do it, or if we don't, what's the opportunity cost? And then the third piece of that is the action plan. So I understand I need to do this. I understand where the opportunity is. I understand the bigger story and vision behind that. Now, how am I actually going to make this so I get this business to substantial scale in 2 to 3 years? Yeah. And what are the steps that I need to take to make that happen? Those are the kind of three things that you need to build confidence around.
A couple key things that you said there. One, that story. I found that the best story has a little bit of carrot and a little bit of stick. You need both. You really do. Because why do anything disruptive and risky and expensive if there's no stick, right? Like I could just keep making money and I'm fine. Why do I need to go do this and all this hassle and risk? And if I'm the board, why do I need to go put my name on the line when there's no threat? So you need a little bit of stick. You need a threat. Hey, you know what? If we don't do this, this is going to happen with or without us. Right. It's inevitable. Who's doing it? Oh, Amazon's doing it. Look, they have 14% market share for menswear in the UK.
You've got to show that there's a real opportunity cost if you don't act, not just opportunity upside if you do.
Exactly. Oh, but by the way, there's a huge opportunity because we could do this. And here's why we could win, because you can do a vertical specific marketplace. And there's plenty of precedent showing that vertical specific marketplaces can carve out their own territory. Oh, and here are the assets that we already have. We already have huge e-commerce demand and right? So I love that big story, that big vision, carrot and stick. And then the other point, that 2 to 3 year timeline. I think you go into that boardroom and you give them a 5-year time horizon, you're going to have a tough time getting that approved. I think you give them a 2 to 3 year time horizon where you have an initiative that can get to scale, that can, or maybe if it's not truly at scale or critical mass, you're kind of at roughly a break-even point.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, this is not a platform example, but look at what Disney's done with Disney Plus. Their whole thing is like, right, by 2023 or 24, we'll have enough subscribers where we can break even. And that was really the whole vision and pitch. So you've seen this in action with companies that have tried to embrace radically new business models, which Disney, again, not a platform business, but still very different from their traditional pay TV model.
And the board knows, right? Hey, you say 2 or 3 years. Okay, maybe it's 4 or 5. You go in and you say it's 5 years. They're probably going to say, okay, maybe it's 6 or 7
or 8.
And I don't know about this, right? Like, how could we accelerate this? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where, using the balance sheet of the business, assuming you haven't riddled it with debt because you've waited too long, but assuming you still got a decently healthy balance sheet, how can you use that balance sheet to solve the other thing, which is resources and technology gap, and maybe some chicken or egg demand and supply as well. And there's a lot of tech startups in these spaces. And you don't need to do everything on your own, and you can accelerate, and you probably should look at accelerating if there's good options in the market, which in most of these industries, there actually are a lot of really good options. And it's really just a matter of figuring out what do I need to do internally? What strengths do I bring to the table? What are my gaps? And how could I fill those gaps and accelerate my timeline to go get this new business model going and be successful? But I don't need to do it all myself.
There's three buckets if you're looking at the kind of acquire, partner, invest that you can fill in. One is talent. So do you have the people on your team you think can execute this? Two is technology. Do you have the technology to actually support this platform business model? And then three would be liquidity. So consumers or producers, you feel like you're lacking in one of those areas and need to accelerate. Those are kind of the three levers that you have that you can look at and say, there's existing tech startups or companies out there that already have one of these. I can partner with them or buy them and get there much faster. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of holistic vision the board is going to want to see. They're going to want to understand that action plan and say, all right, here's what we want to go and do. We have a few potential targets. We have data to support that. And here's the vision of where we're going to get within the next 3 or so years.
Hi, this is Alex from Winner Take All. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the content. Feel free to leave a comment, ask us questions, and definitely make sure to join us on our next live stream.